Good afternoon and welcome to the Epsom webinars. My name is Mark Lancaster. I'll be the moderator for today. And today's topic actually, is how do we support pupils and students with additional needs? And most importantly, what actually constitutes learning support? Now today, the webinar will follow along the same lines as our previous three, which will be about 25-30 minutes of Q&As with our speaking panel today, as well as about 15-20 minutes of specific questions and answers with our parents today. So without further ado, let me introduce our speakers of today. First of all, Mrs. Denu Sankey, who is the head of learning support at Epsom College in Malaysia. Mrs. Leona Squires, who is Senko of Prep School and Key Stage 1 coordinator. And Mr. Ian Squires, head of boarding and SPLD assessor. Let me start, first of all, with a question to Mrs. Denu Sankey. Denu, what exactly is learning support? What does it mean?
All right. So here in Epsom College, we see our students as individuals with their unique strengths and talents and gifts, as well as difficulties. That's just normal for a child. Sometimes we will have children who are slightly outside that scope or in the periphery of that spectrum, who may have additional needs. And that's where learning support comes in. We like to help these group of students to reach their full potential. So what are these needs? They could be academic, difficulty perhaps accessing a particular subject in the curriculum. It could be social development. They may be slightly delayed in their social development, or it could be executive functioning skills. That is, in the area of organizational skill, in the area of time management. They may not be as developed, as independent as perhaps others in their age group. So this is where learning support comes in. We try and help and support, find ways, strategies to help and support them, scaffold. And just to give a couple of examples, I'm in charge of the secondary, of the senior school. And when we start with year 7, the 7, 8, 9, key stage 3, when they enter, we start monitoring. We look at their data. For example, the entrance exam, when we monitor the students, we have in mind that they're going to be sitting for exams in 5 years' time. And it's very important that their progress is going according to the plan, i.e. they need to be ready for an exam in 5 years. So for example, if they're falling behind in English, what can we do? What type of extra support can we give in order to ensure that they are not far behind their peers? And by the time they reach year 11 IGCSE, they will be ready. Another example could be executive functioning skills. If they are very disorganized, not getting homework in on time, what are the extra handhold? We do hold their hand a bit longer, perhaps, if you like, in order to ensure that they are not falling behind the rest of the peers, and they will be ready for the exams at the end of year 11.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sankey. Now, that's a perspective from, I suppose, senior school and overall. Can I take this to the prep school? And if we can sort of segue to Mrs. Leona Squires. Mrs. Squires, every parent really will want to have their kids start as early as possible. That's the best way to really get an education to be kicked off. So how does learning support work in basically early years in prep school?
Okay, so in the early years, when they start from the age of 3 up, obviously sometimes there isn't even a diagnosis. We don't know. They come into the school and they just join the school as normal. sometimes, of course, there is a diagnosis. If it's something really severe, we will know what their needs are, but often there is no diagnosis. We're just observing them and working with them and working with the parents to find out what their needs are. So in our early years, it's a play-based curriculum. It's a small school, a small setting, small class numbers, which means that we can just work around the children to their individual needs. So play-based, often people we can work with likes and dislikes, because quite often with all children, but specifically with special needs children, they have specific likes and dislikes. So, you know, we can plan our everyday tasks around the things like. So if they have an obsession with Thomas the Tank Engine, we can plan our schooling around that and fit in the things that we need to teach them by using their individual wants and needs. So that's how we can incorporate them into the early years specifically.
Thank you, Mrs. Squires. I think parents are watching this with children who are planning to actually pop into early years or prep. Maybe you could actually give a little bit more of an example of an overview of the approach, particularly for early years and prep.
Okay, so if I go through the stages in the prep school, so we have 3 stages in the prep school. Early years, which I've discussed already. In early years, it has a specific curriculum. We follow the EYFS, which is early years foundation stage curriculum, exactly the same as the UK. This is a play-based curriculum. So as I've said, we can work around the children's needs. We can focus in on their likes and dislikes, and we make it as fun as possible. So for a child with needs or special needs, this is a perfect environment for them, because we have small class sizes, teachers and TAs who know the children really well, and we can adapt, differentiate to suit their needs completely. It works. We've had some children go into early years who have a global delay or really specific needs, and that works brilliantly for them because they become comfortable in that environment, comfortable with this small group of friends, and the friends themselves are very important as well. They're comfortable to have those children in with them. They're great with them. They work with them, and we've seen some significant developments in children with speech and language problems or social issues in that setting. Once we get to Key Stage 1, obviously we're looking more in depth at the children's needs, and we're starting to become more academic with like maths and English and things like that. What we do in Key Stage 1 is we assess the children, all the children, not just the special needs children, and we group them for things like phonics and EAL to make sure they are learning at their own pace and they're in the specific group that they want to be in. If we don't have a diagnosis, but we suspect that there might be need for support, we can then work, because we're such a small school, that we have learning support staff, and we have very qualified TAs who will then work with them either in the class or take them out of the class to give them phonics support, reading support, writing support, whatever they need. We can do it within the school environment, so the children don't have to go out, be taken out. They are within the school environment working with their friends all the time. When we get to Key Stage 2, it's a continuation, really. At that point, we probably do know their specific issues. They may have even had a diagnosis, or we suspect that they have dyslexia, or we know of their specific needs. At that point, we can give more focused intervention. So for example, for dyslexic children, we would give them reading, writing specific intervention. So we use a program called WordWasp at the moment, where they work with the trained TAs one-to-one to do those programs, or we'll give them writing intervention, be it gross fine motor intervention or more speech and language intervention. We can take them out. What we can do at all these levels is work with people within the school, but also specialists outside of the school, so that we know we're completely focused on that child's individual needs. And we will always work with the parents, because obviously the parents know their children the most. They know what's best. So we need to work with all the the different people involved to make sure we're really giving the children the specific focus on the needs.
Thank you, Mrs. Squires. Now, what if the child has higher levels of need? What do we do then?
So we have had a number of children in the school already who have had a high level needs. As I said, we've had a couple of children in early years who have had global delay. So they've had a lot of speech and language and socialization problems. So for them, just the small setting and the lovely children around them and the accepting nature of our environment means that they have developed phenomenally throughout and have developed their speech and language, developed their social skills. And quite often it's lovely to see because they come in completely silent, but then they're the ones who end up being the children that you notice around the school who are making the noise, saying hello to everyone and waving. So they settle in and they make huge progress. We've also had dyslexic children, ADHD children who we've given specific support for social perhaps, or obviously I've talked about the phonics or anything like that, but we've also run social groups which helps with, can be a mix of children, autistic children, but sometimes children just have specific social needs, and we've run social groups with other people within the school, helpers or external people who will come in and help. Then we also have a number of autistic children, or we've had a few autistic children. They have come up through the school and made also fantastic progress because of the environment, the small school environment, because they get to know friends and things, and they make friends and they move up from the school and their friends are great and they help them out, and we can give them specific needs. So we can also incorporate, we have had in the school shadow aid, which is someone that will come in the class with the children, the child as and when they need that support, and we work with them to make sure we give them the support they need, but we also take it away as soon as we possibly can so that they can become more independent and we can prepare them for senior school as well.
Now that's really interesting. So essentially that within prep school all the way to year 6, huge amounts of support, and it's something that we're very, very good at. And you've mentioned actually autistic, ADHD, dyslexic young children as well. I suppose my next question is really to Mrs. Sankey. Once the prep school children come towards senior school to year 7, which is your particular territory, what's our approach then?
Yeah, the focus, well, one focus that doesn't change as they enter into senior school is a personalized, individualized learning that happens because we are a smaller school and the teacher pupil ratio is small, and that is something I think really works to our advantage. So and we make full use of that. The approach to learning in the classrooms are very much more personalized because there is that small student teacher ratio where we don't have to have one size fits all lesson plans in the classrooms, but rather teachers can be very creative and looking at the types of students they have in the classroom and plan lessons accordingly. So that focus continues from early years to prep to senior school and even to A levels. One area that the focus does change is, as I've mentioned previously, we are preparing our students for the IGCSE exams in 5 years' time, at the end of year 11. So with that in mind, we do, while the prep school is focused more on functional skills, reading skills, writing skills, math skills, when they come up to senior school, it's more a pragmatic approach. All right, so what are these students' needs? For instance, if I say we have a student who's dyslexic, instead of dyslexic or dysgraphia, they may take longer than their peers to take notes instead of taking copious amounts of notes in lessons, focusing on the actual presentation of their work and ensuring they've completed their notes, or, the handwriting is neat, they've crossed their T's and dotted every I's. Instead of focusing on that, we take that away by giving the option of pupils using a laptop instead to word process their notes. So that way it takes away a bit of that stress from the students. So the students can actually get involved in the lesson and, discuss with the teachers on what the subject matter is. And so that's one way we try and help these students with additional needs to get around their learning difficulty or learning disability. Another one, which my colleague Leona mentioned as well, is also for example, in the area of social skills. We do have students who Asperger's, high functioning autism, who may have difficulty making friends or knowing what to do in a social situation. In that case, we work closely with our counselor and we provide social thinking classes. So the focus is very much more academic, ensuring they're ready for the exams. But at the same time, we also focus on the other areas, executive functioning skills, social skills, to ensure that they're growing up to be as well-rounded as possible.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I suppose many parents out there really have the wrong impression insofar as they think that for children with, or rather who have find learning to be challenging, that school is just too difficult. What do you say to that, and how would you explain that it's not?
I think, again, communication is vital here. It's crucial. And because we're a small school, we're a community here. There's a lot of communication between the subject teachers, the pupil, we as the learning support department, the housemasters and mistresses. There's constant communication going on. So we use information like, we use data like the entrance exam and so forth, where we're able to identify, or besides entrance exam, we use their test results, exam results, their classwork and so forth, to assess and see where they may be struggling. And we're able to immediately communicate with parents, with teachers and subject teachers, to tell them, all right, this is where there seems to be a need, a problem, and an issue. The child is struggling with this, and we can come up with strategies and solutions that is so bespoke, that is specifically for that child, to help that child progress, move forward. A couple of examples I can give is scaffolding. We scaffold. I'm a subject teacher as well. I teach the sciences, and we do a lot of scaffolding, and that means we look at our students in our class and we see, okay, from these group of students, again, as I've mentioned before, students come with their own set of strengths, and in my subject, I recognize the ones sciences may not be their strength. And what I do is, for these group of students, whether they have a learning need or not, I would provide some sort of scaffolding so that they can fully access the curriculum as much as their typical peers may be able to. In English, for example, to provide scaffolding, one area that a lot of students do struggle with is extended essay writing. And that's not just in English, it's for history, geography, and sciences as well. We do expect them to write more in senior school as they get older, and especially towards the upper end, key stage 4, years 10, 11. And that's when scaffolding, for example, sentence starters, writing frames, to help these students to structure their thoughts and then to put them down on paper. It's a skill that not many students have or acquire naturally. So that's something teachers do offer, scaffolding, to help these students to acquire the skills as they progress through the years in senior school. One more example is differentiation. We again, in a classroom, we don't have one lesson plan. Teachers do not have one lesson plan, one size fits all. We always look at the range of students that we have, and we ensure that there's some form of differentiation for the higher end. Are they being extended? For the middling, are they being stretched? And the ones that who may have difficulty accessing the curriculum, are they being supported sufficiently? So this is happening in our classrooms, and learning support department are there to support the teachers, to give ideas, resources, and so forth.
Thank you, Mrs. Sankey. We've talked about support. We've touched on the prep school. We've talked about how they segue into senior school and the level of support there. And I know that this is probably, when children that require learning support, when they finally get to the first major exam, IGCSEs, how do we approach this?
Yeah, that's I think one of the strengths of the school, being a small school, Epsom College, we can offer flexibility. At the end of year 9, before they enter into the 2 IGCSE years, students are informed that they have to choose what subjects they want to sit for their IGCSEs. So 3 subjects: math, science, and English. Math, sciences, the sciences and English, those are core subjects. Everyone will have to sit for those. And then they have 4 optional options they can take out of a range of subjects: geography, history, design, technology, IT, business studies, art, whole range of subjects. They can choose 4 that they would like to continue into their IGCSE years. And this is where the first year, in year 10, we will encourage them to try out the 4 subjects that they've taken, and the learning support department will keep an eye, will monitor these students on the learning support register, will monitor them and see how they're accessing the 4 subjects, whether they are coping okay, the workload is not too much for them. We do constantly monitoring their mental well-being. That's very important here. And constant communication with the subject teachers and the students to ensure that they're coping okay. And towards the end of year 10, we will have that conversation with the parents, with the child, and the subject teachers. Would it be wise to perhaps drop a subject or 2 and let the child focus on subjects that they are doing well in, the optional subjects that they are doing well in, try and get the highest possible grades in those, so that that's probably something they may want to do at university later on. I had a student with ADHD and who absolutely academically not very strong, but absolutely loved history. And you could ask her anything about American history, and she could just give you loads of information. So she was someone that I could see, if she did want to go to university, history would be a subject that she could study. And so learning support department tries to identify where the strengths are and ensure that they do have the platform to shine in those areas of strength, and then provide support and scaffold in the areas that they're struggling with. So there's flexibility. We don't have to sit for 10 IGCSEs, it can be reduced to 7 or 8 or even 6 if need be. But because we're a small school, we can offer such flexibility.
Thank you, Mrs. Sankey. So it's about support. It's about the platform. Now, the thing about Epsom College is it does both day students, and of course it has boarding students as well. And there's a big focus on why boarding has or offers the experiences which are very, very beneficial for all children. I'd like to segue to Mr. Ian Squires. And Mr. Squires, I know you're a SEN member, and plus you're our boarding head of boarding. How does the boarding experience in Epsom actually further provide even more of a platform for children with special needs?
Thank you, Mark. I think boarding supports all children, but particularly children on our learning support framework at a number of levels. Parents who have children with needs will understand the importance of executive skills, and if they're lacking, and they're comorbid with conditions such as ASD, ADHD, dyslexia, things like timekeeping, organisation, independence, communication. When they're lacking, school becomes quite a difficult place. Fortunately for us and for boarding, those are the traditional strengths that boarding develops. Organisation, independence, confidence, communication are very much the benchmark and the nature of a residential experience. So what does this mean? It means that when you're in a day school, you get up in the morning, the parents are panicking, they're packing bags, children have forgot their homework, they forgot the pencil that you bought to replace the last pencil, they go to school, they haven't got the equipment, they forgot the homework. Everything becomes a snowball, and school can become quite a difficult place. In boarding, there's a number of advantages. You wake up and you travel 100 meters to your classroom. There's 3 residential members of staff who help support and develop the independence and the executive skills. The whole process is so much easier. The loop between home, which is the boarding house, and school is so much smaller. And the margin for error is in many ways greater, because if there are mistakes, it's a matter of coming back to the boarding house, remembering that equipment, and remembering all those things that prevented school development and learning. Secondly, there's a HMM and staff on site. Understanding personal needs is really important, and that's a lot easier when children live with you 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Understanding their moods, understanding their issues, being able to communicate them in the evenings, on the weekends, is there. And just that strengthens that ability to deal with issues and to build those executive skills and put all the checks and measures in place that work. For parents, I think it takes a lot of the stress out of the environment. I think the most difficult thing as a parent of a teenager and a prep child myself is the worry, the difficulty of not being able to control things, because you send them to school. Once they forget it, the physical distance makes it difficult. With that, the boarding element, it disappears, and everything's so much more stress-free for the parents, but also much more enjoyable for the children. When they fail less, when there's more flexibility, it means school's more enjoyable, and school should be fun. And I think by improving these executive skills, we can make it as such. Our next, social development, a part of boarding and that environment is developing social skills, and we have social opportunities, and that can be quite difficult with children with particular needs such as ASD. But when you live in a house and we have constant social development as a part of our curriculum, Christmas dinners, weekly social events, the children have access not only to this environment, but teachers to support them to get used to this idea, to public speaking, to dealing with others, people from other countries. So it's very much a part of what we do, and also a part of how this can support the children. And I guess something a lot of the parents will wonder is, how does it support the academics? I think probably the most stressful part of many parents' day in a school-based environment and a day school is the prep time or the homework. Does the homework come home fully communicated? Can your child tell you what it was supposed to do? Are you aware about the quality? Who do you ask for help? Do they even bring their homework home? Well, obviously, in our environment, 1, we can find that out. 2, we're able to help them. And 3, they're surrounded by really good, like-minded peers who also are able to support and promote their learning. Added to that, the environment is supportive, and we do have teachers working each night, academic staff who both reside in the house and come into evening prep, organised time that not only develop their prep time, but promote a positive learning experience. But all those things together, the boarding experience is a really positive experience for all children, but particularly I would suggest for children who have learning needs.
Thanks, Mr. Squires. One of the questions that I could imagine that many of the parents who are watching this will be asking is that, okay, boarding, I know, I totally understand it. It's got the right kind of support platforms. It makes a huge amount of sense, but how do I keep in touch and actually understand the comings and goings and how they're progressing? How about communication about my child?
Thank you, Mark. A good question and valid. I would suggest that boarding actually gives you a greater level of interaction and communication. A day school works between quite set hours, 8, 4 o'clock, and the access to the teachers and support is very much limited to those times. We're open 7 days a week. We're open from 7 o'clock in the morning. And essentially, we don't shut all through the evening. We have teachers working to 10:30 at night. And because of that, parents can communicate and access us in a far greater range of time period and the spread of time period. That access is there for parents, be it face-to-face interaction, come to visit us at the weekend. It can be by video call, WhatsApp, telephone call. So I think that level of communication, if not equal, would be greater than a day school. And then it would be about quality of communication. When you live with children, as we do, in each house is about 50 children, you get to know those children so much better. So when you do have communication with the teachers, I think you would consider it to be more worthwhile because it's coming into a context of a residential experience, which just has so much more weight and volume to the conversations.
Thank you. Now, my next question at this one is, we've heard about exams, we've heard about IGCSEs, and everyone's going to be talking about A-levels in university. And for a lot of young parents out there with younger children with learning needs, additional needs, the question will be, can they get into university? Can we say that that is something that can be done?
Absolutely, Mark. I think there's two parts of this. There's the academic support. Obviously, the children need to get their grades. Our results are excellent, and we've got a history not only getting our Oxford candidates in place, but of getting children who might have additional needs to the university of choice. How can we do that? Well, I think we've discussed it already today, but the individual support academically is there in the curriculum, but also outside of the curriculum, later into the evenings and at weekends. So can our children achieve the grades that they're set out to do? Very much so. But alongside this, and I'm sure many parents will be worried about sending their children to university. Are they ready? And that's understandable, particularly if they've got the executive skill issues or social issues. So this environment really does develop those skills. And we have sent our children to university with a lot more confidence that because they've already left the nest, because they've lived away from home, step closer to being able to survive, not only survive, flourish at university. And a third thing, I think, is the small, intimate, but successful nature of our sixth form is our HE team really does know our children well. We're not writing references for 250 students. It's not piecemeal, it's not an industrial level of writing university applications. And because we know these students really well, we've managed to interact with the university admissions officers and not only pick the best courses, but pick the universities that offer support with some of the children who have had ASD, dyslexia, etc. in the best possible way. And I feel in that way, we've sent our children to university, not only prepared academically, but with a support vehicle waiting for them when they do arrive in the UK, the US, or wherever they choose to go.
Mr. Squires, thank you very much. So we've heard from Mrs. Denu Sankey, we've heard from Mrs. Leona Squires on the prep school side, senior school side up from Mrs. Sankey, and boarding in relation to how that actually can support children with additional needs. Now, many of you out there will probably be asking that. We've skirted around it, we've talked about it, but Mr. Sankey, will Epsom accept children with diagnosed special needs? In other words, ADHD, ASD, dyslexia as examples.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do have a few. We have students with dyslexia and high functioning autism, Asperger's, as well as ADHD and GDD as well. So we do have them currently. I think what I would say is if you feel you would like to try a different school for your child, please do get in touch with us in the Learning Support Department. We'd love to have a chat with you. I myself am a mother with a special needs child, so I know how difficult it is to find a suitable school where we know our child is progressing academically and mental well-being. Mentally, they're happy. they're happy here. So do come and just you're welcome to come and have a chat with us. And we would love to get to know your child as well on a more personal level. So yeah, do look us up.
Thank you. Now I think we're pretty much at the end of today's webinar, but as per normal, what we'd like to do is actually open up for questions and answers. Please don't hesitate to, if you're on a laptop watching or an iPad watching, with the Zoom software, you can actually pop in and type out questions. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for registering for today. I know we had a great deal of interest, and I look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. Thank you very much.